Hi, I'm Marty Cohn, and welcome to Brattleboro Community Television's Meet the Candidates 2022. This series affords you an opportunity to hear from the folks running for elected office. Today, our guest is Tristan Roberts, who is the Democratic candidate running for Windham 6 State Representative. Welcome, Tristan.
Thank you, Marty. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, so let's start off with some basic questions. Why do you want to be the state representative for Windham 6?
Well, let's start with what Windham 6 is, because I think average voters can lose track of this. It's my hometown of Halifax, Whitingham, Wilmington. So it's three small towns, 4,200 people, give or take. And those are three small towns that I think oftentimes Montpelier does not have a deep understanding of. Now, I've been in Windham County for 25 years since I came to Marlborough College. I've been in Halifax for 17 years. I've had a son there. I've raised a family. I have a farm. I have a small business. And Marty, a couple years ago, it's a small town of 800 people. I looked around, said, I think I need to step up and do more. There's only so many people, and there's so much to do to run a small town. I ran for select board. I won. I've been serving on the select board for 2.5 years. And it turns out, Marty, that I am enjoying the process. I'm finding it rewarding. I'm finding that I have ways to contribute. I thought I was too busy with work, life, everything else to do public service. And I am pretty busy, but I just made a commitment to do what I can to step forward and help our small towns and be a voice in Montpelier for them. And I'm doing it on the basis of being a practical person that knows the challenges of looking at rising gravel costs, diesel costs for our roads budget, looking at the education tax funding that we send to Montpelier, only some of which comes back to a town like Wilmington and Whitingham especially. And that these are issues where our towns need and deserve a good voice. And, as I tell people, my name is Tristan Roberts. I'm running to be that voice for Windham 6 in Montpelier. And I'd appreciate your consideration.
All right. Well, now, this time around, you have some competition for the seat. What separates you from the other guy?
Well, I'd really prefer to let the other guy, speak for himself. I will say, I'll actually start with something that I agree on him with. That the Vermont Democratic Party, and it's been covered in the Deerfield Valley News recently, the Democratic Party called him out for attendance at the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2020, called him names around that. And my opponent explained himself. He explained his First Amendment rights for being there, that he did not support violence, and that he accepts that Biden is the lawfully elected president. And I accept his explanation. And I think we've had a lot more issues around women's rights, gun rights, the vision we have for our small towns that I think we've had substantive discussions on. So anyone that has picked up the Deerfield Valley News, flip to page 2 for a really good summary of our recent candidate forum where we got into some of those issues.
All right. Well, all right. Magic wand, you're elected. What would be your top 2 priorities? Two. Marty,
I'm a first-time candidate. It's an open seat this year. John Gannon served ably as the current rep. So can I just say my number 1 priority
what's your number 1 priority?
Is to learn.
Okay.
We have major concern in Windham 6 around the health of the schools in the school district. And the state education funding formula and how that money gets doled out to towns and to districts like Twin Valley is something that few people understand, let alone can explain to the average citizen. So we have, I think Montpelier tends to see Wilmington, towns like Wilmington and Dover, which is not my district, but similar, we're side by side, as wealthy towns that can afford to pay high taxes. Well, there are wealthy home, building owners in these towns. But there are average families with very high property taxes, rising cost of living, rising cost of heating fuel. I'm very concerned about this winter, choices that families will have to make. And Marty, I speak every day with families who are up and leaving, either leaving the town, leaving the entire state. And that's not to speak about, well, we will speak about, let's speak about people that just don't make it, period. You know, a good friend of mine lost his young sister this summer, ostensibly to murder, but months ago she was lost to drugs, you know, and then things happened, drugs were involved, and her body shows up. So some people just aren't plain making it, period. So, Marty, I think I take with me to Montpelier these stories, the voices I hear talking out, knocking on doors, asking people what's working for them and what's not working for them. And I would simply my priority would be to take those voices, take those stories, take my love and hope for our small towns to Montpelier and be curious. I'd like to understand better. I'm new at this. I'd like to understand better the education funding formula. I'd like to understand, you're going to ask me about the Climate Action Plan. Well, I started studying it this week so I could better understand it and be informed on this kind of answer. I don't speak, as I said to the reformer recently, I don't speak yet in sentences that are punctuated by H this and S that, with just one exception. I'm a strong supporter of voting yes on proposals 2 and 5 because I support women and I support people that are living in oppression. And we should be clear about that in our Constitution.
All right. So let's talk about some of the challenges of life here in Vermont. All right. And with the understanding that you're going to learn, and this is your first time. Got it.
Okay.
The first one. People are looking at the rising costs of food, fuel, and other goods.
Yeah.
What do you think you could do in Montpelier about that?
I'm listening to as many ideas as I can right now. Certainly, I think people look at, I hear people complain about gas taxes, vehicle registration fees, mandates, Act 64 being an unfunded mandate on our small towns to do road work to certain specs that we're not getting any additional funding from the state to do. That has a direct impact when we buy ditch stone, which we barely budgeted for this year in Halifax, had to ultimately take from another line. When the cost of that goes up, the supplies go down, this affects taxpayers directly. Mm-hmm. Everyone's seeing the effect of rising fuel, food, all this stuff. What would I do, Marty? I'm curious. I talked to something as simple as vehicle registration and inspection. Well, the DMV just forced garages to switch over to a new inspection system, new computer system.
Really?
Now, is that computer system, and they have the cost of that equipment, learning this new system, educating everyone in the shop. Now, was there a problem with our existing vehicle inspection system? Was it not adequate? I'm not aware that it was. Right. So when our government takes actions, when we have legislators who come up with, I'm sure, well-meaning laws, well-meaning regulations, there's going to be some good out of this, we can all look at something and say, well, yeah, good will happen if we pass this. The folks that work in Montpelier and Waterbury that run the state, I'm sure they're all trying to do a good job. But are they thinking about the impact on working families? Are they thinking through, well, okay, we passed this, we'd like our vehicle inspection system to be a little bit better. Well, is the cost of a brand new system to all the small businesses that had to adopt that, is that worth the benefit? I would just want to think these things through from idea to reality. And Marty, I have experience doing this. I have a 20-year career in the sustainability industry. So I've worked with regulations around toxic chemicals in building products, around building codes, around global goals on climate change and carbon. And it has been my core skill through various job positions I've had over the last 20 years to take these well-meaning green, good goals and translate them for average businesses and business owners and workers. And I think I'd be in a good position to bring that expertise to Montpelier and just help see these things through and help write legislation in a way that gives us the best benefit while controlling increasing costs or maybe finding efficiencies.
All right. All right, here's another challenge. Housing. We want to bring people to Vermont. We want to improve economic development, but there's a housing crisis. There's a shortage. What do you think? What would you do to help ease the housing crisis?
Marty, I said this in the forum. There's not enough housing, and it costs too much, right? So we have to look at all sides. It's a systemic issue, and let's again look at the impact of this. In our school districts, we don't have. Last I knew, this may have changed with recent hiring. We were down a math teacher, down a reading interventionist, down a substitute, down an admin. So it's affecting our quality of education, which in turn, the families, the family I talked to last night that's planning to leave in the next year for a different school district, this is affecting their choice. So we need to think about, and the cost of housing is affecting all this, right? Because you can't hire, it's difficult to hire people from outside. Right. If people aren't willing to step up and take the job that already live here, well, what's our hiring pool? Vermont's a great place to live. Can people afford it? I would just be open to all solutions. I know, the legislature passed a couple programs in the last biennium that would support funding for, let's say, homeowners converting a garage apartment to a rentable long-term unit. So I think I'd like to see how that program does and support, if elected, my constituents in having access to that funding. I'd like to be creative and look at, for example, a friend is traveling for a year, had the opportunity to rent out his house. Mm-hmm. Now, that could be a house for a 4 or 5 person home, someone moving to the area with a family, very difficult to find housing. Now, that could have been a housing for a year for such a family, being new to the area. Or it could be Airbnb. Now, Marty, which do you think he went with?
B&B.
You're right. Now, you would think, some people would say, oh, profiteering, this person, they can make more money on that. And that might be true, but let's look at the whole equation. The risk of having a long-term tenant where things don't work out or there might be damage to your home that you're planning to return to in a year and you need to be kept safe, the risk of that versus someone parties too hard for a weekend and you have to, pay cleaning extra, it's not, these things are really different. So I would really like to, and I don't know if I have any support on this is just an idea I've come up with from talking to folks, but that's the kind of thing where I'd like to look at the whole system and see if there are solutions where we can mitigate the risk, that the disproportionate risk that landlords face with long-term renters.
All right, well, and that's great. So you're going to bring a new perspective and into some of these challenges. Let me throw this one out: public safety. I don't want to say particularly the increase in violence in Vermont because there's a lot of things about that. But what do you think we could do to enhance public safety in Vermont?
Boy, Marty, I was thinking about this on the way in here. And the question you sent me included reducing violence, and I really thought about reducing violence and how I think about that in my life. And I think it's really easy to think about violence and crime as something that other people, criminals do that, and sometimes one may be a victim of violence. But when you see it in the news, hopefully it's someone else. It's really easy to say, okay, what are we going to do about these people that are doing crime? Or what are we going to do for this problem over here? And Marty, when I think about reducing violence, I just think about, well, what can I do about that? Because I can't control anyone else but me. So where I've become aware of problems that are systemically producing violence, especially, I have tried to tune in to those problems really deeply and put myself in the shoes of the people in the situation. Now, I've written about this quite a bit, so I won't bore you with the details, but for example, this is why I traveled to Minneapolis this spring to visit George Floyd Square in person. Black Lives Matter, all the protests around systemic violence, this has just been racking our country. And here I am in Halifax, Vermont, not feeling that I'm being deeply touched by this on a personal basis, but feeling that my fellow Americans are. So I really studied the situation and literally put myself in the scene. Studied, well, what's going through Derek Chauvin's head? What's going through Officer Tao's head? What brought George Floyd to this moment when he was brutalized? Genevieve Hanson, someone that appeared on the scene. Donald Williams is someone that appeared on the scene, tried to help, and did help to the extent that they could. But that help wasn't enough to save this man's life, and a brutal murder occurred. So I'm just someone that seeks to, every person I just named, I have some empathy for that person and some understanding of how they got there, because I didn't just say, that guy did this bad thing, but what brought him there? What can I understand about that? And Marty, that's just a quality that I, as a writer, as a father, as a human being, try to bring to any situation. And if someone says to me, Tristan, I don't like what you did, well, I really deeply listen to that person and say, oh, because I think it's one-to-one interactions. It's how we go about our lives on a daily basis in every interaction that then influences these big headline-producing moments where violence occurs. So, and again, back to my friend who lost his sister to a brutal murder. Was the person that murdered her a criminal, or is the fentanyl from China that's 100 times stronger than morphine? Is the human being in control of themselves in this situation, or is the drug in control? And we need to do everything we can to keep our people safe from this war that's being waged on us from outside our borders. We need to get people help and resources with no stigmatization of mental health, mental issues. And many people I speak to are concerned about the catch and release program we have going on at a judicial level. I think if we have laws, we need to be serious about upholding those laws and give people, if someone does something violent, put them away in a safe place behind bars where they can contemplate that and get over it and not go out and do it again. And we are not sending enough resources to the judicial system for restorative justice right now. Our prisons are overcrowded as a result. And so we're not doing anything to work with people, and they're just going on and doing the thing that works for them, which oftentimes is repeat crimes.
Right.
And it's not working for us as a society. And I think we need to take a long, hard look at how as a society, are we making choices around our tax money, our laws, and what we're willing to commit to resources to our judicial system to do a better job for everyone involved, victims, families of victims, perpetrators, and so on. Law enforcement. Law enforcement needs to have what they need. Everyone needs to have what they need.
All right. So here's a big issue that's or big challenge in Vermont. The climate crisis. It's something that's really reshaping life in Vermont as we know it. Last year, in December 2021, the Vermont Climate Council released its Climate Action Plan.
Yeah.
That provided a blueprint to coordinate, for climate action. You alluded to the fact that you know about it. You looked it up.
Yeah.
Which pieces of the Climate Action Plan would you take up if you're elected?
Marty, I couple things. One is, in the late 1800s and early 1900s, New York City had a crisis where the level of horse manure that was piling up on the sidewalks from horse and buggies was a major crisis for the city. And then something came along, technology, the internal combustion engine in the automobile, that completely changed and revolutionized our notions of what is waste, what is a resource, how to use our land regarding transportation. Now we're in a climate crisis. I think we would all agree that technology and energy are critical to this, and we are looking for revolutions, similar revolutions in technology that may change our very notion of what is waste and what is a resource, and how to decarbonize our entire economy while moving forward in prosperity.
Right.
This is a very difficult problem. But I think, studying the Climate Action Plan already, one thing I would like to do is look at whether it's whether it needs to be updated from time to time to account for and give support for technological developments. For example, it notes the role of nuclear power, but says that nuclear power has significant impacts associated with spent radioactive fuels and enhanced safety risks. Well, Marty, I was for the closing of Vermont Yankee, but since then we've seen an entire revolution in nuclear energy where the Generation 5 plants have technology built in where if there's any issue with the reaction, the thing shuts down. The thorium salt reactors that just cool to a solid hulk if there's an issue. So the safety risks to that versus a solar installer up on a roof, well, which is actually greater? It's the solar. So if we're talking about worker safety, these things, and that's a notion that has just changed in the last 20 years. I think we need to be open to updating our plans, even plans that we make and pass as law, to account for new technology and to support new technology. One other piece, Marty, I'd want to note is the plan calling for a space for indigenous cultures and a safe space for all cultures to inhabit Vermont in the future. That's a part of the plan that I really believe wholly in and would even want to take to a stronger level of, a bumper sticker I saw the way in said, we're all spots on the same cow. So all Vermonters, there's a lot of diversity in Vermont. And I think we all have something to add to the cultural equation of what a sustainable, thriving, prosperous future means. And I would like to create space for indigenous voices that have been on the land for centuries to have a more visible view in that, if they would like.
All right. Well, okay, my last question might be the toughest one.
Okay.
Okay, you ready? What do you want voters to know about you?
Marty, some people find themselves to be the hardest topic to speak about, and I'm no different. I hope that just from our conversation and our time today, and thank you for those at home for watching, you've maybe just gotten a sense of who I am as a person without me having to say so. But I'll highlight a couple things in case you were, went up to take a break at any point. Marty, I'm a very collaborative person. I believe that everyone means well and can bring something to the table. Sometimes it takes deep listening to ascertain what someone is really all about and what they're trying to bring to the table. I'm someone that in my life has been committed to doing that and to putting myself into other shoes. I've really gone through, as a first-time candidate, first time putting out lawn signs and all the like, sending out mailings. It's been quite a mind shift. I've gone from, wow, politicians are it's the name, it's the big name on the sign, Tristan Roberts for state rep. Well, it's my name on the ballot, it's my name on the sign. It's me stepping forward, hopefully to Montpelier in January, to serve Wyndham 6. But I'm sincerely and deeply thinking about all the 4,200 plus residents of our district and the diversity of viewpoints, culture, sometimes culture such as around guns, it's different from my own. I didn't grow up with guns. but our district has a very strong, responsible gun culture, which I respect. Just to give one example of something that's different from me, but I respect. That's the kind of person I am, Marty, and that's the kind of legislator I would hope to be if elected.
All right. Well, Tristan Roberts, Democratic candidate for Wyndham's 6th State Representative. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Marty.
You can learn more by visiting Tristan's website, www.tristanroberts.org. And it should be scrolling as we speak. The general election is Tuesday, November 8th. Remember, you can vote early in person. You can vote absentee by mail. You can vote absentee hand-delivered on Election Day. Whichever way works for you, please vote. Thanks for watching BCTV's Meet the Candidates 2022. I'm Marty Cohn. Stay healthy.